So there's this one thing that will guarantee you accomplish anything you want in your life, and it's gonna sound as stupid and as cliche as it possible can get, but you might even know this terminology, and it's actually you wanting it. And so before you click off, because I said something super cliche and super like logical, like bear with me for a moment, because initially I was gonna go sleep, right? I was gonna just wind myself down because I just had a really long, exhausting day. But I was thinking about this for quite a while, and I realized that I've been indirectly implementing it throughout my entire life. And without realizing, it has allowed me to accomplish some of the minor successes that I always wanted to. And so it's something that I want to share with you guys, because you're actually doing this constantly, but you might either not realize it, one, or number two, you don't acknowledge it even more so that you can use it to your favor. And so, as I mentioned at the very beginning, what is that one thing? The one thing is actually wanting to do it, right? And the want initially comes from desire, right? And desire derives from motivation. And in this video is going to be a little bit different, because it's not going to be none of the biological or physiological or even the philosophical topics I'll talk about. I'll literally talk about the first principle of desire and motivation, right? And so the first principle of desire and motivation comes from action, right? It actually comes from execution. And why is action and execution super, super important? Is because, to be absolutely frank with you, the majority of you guys just don't execute. Like, the statistic is crazy on this. I've just seen it the other day. The amount of brilliant ideas of product innovation, of startup designs, product designs, of Web3 application, website, like the list goes on and on. Like, people are becoming even more so creative nowadays, and that is great, right? Because that nurtures new ideas. But the issue is, on the contrary, there are less and less people executing nowadays, right? Actually doing the work, the due care, the due diligence to actually sit down on their desk to actually do the work and execute and do all of the steps that to realize that idea, right? And so, why is that so? Why are less and less people executing, right? And so there's a lot of reasons to why people are not executing, but the number one biggest chaos slash catastrophe that prevents people from executing is shiny object syndrome. Now, if you have never heard about shiny object syndrome before, I am the biggest victim of it, or to some extent I was the biggest victim. I still am nowadays. But shiny object syndrome basically means that you suddenly get a spark of something shiny, or essentially an idea or something that sounds really appealing, really attractive, and you just suddenly change your mind and decide to go for that idea. So you've probably, if you're an entrepreneur, right, you've probably come across this before, where you have the initial idea, right? You had the idea in the very beginning, and suddenly, like, a new topic comes, AI or Bitcoin, or a new innovative, I don't know, technology or gadget comes by, and you decide to literally dump your entire progress just to reset from the beginning with that new idea. So if you have heard or experienced that kind of scenario before, then that is essentially shiny object syndrome. And so shiny object syndrome is, for me personally, the number one biggest reason why I have not been executing on all the other types of goals and specific objectives I set out for myself. And so, what is the issue here, right? Like, specifically with shiny object syndrome. So, in order for you to become successful, if you reverse engineer the people who made it, a lot of them have one pattern or one similarity in common, right? They were very good at the simple and basic things, right? And so, I'm saying this from specifically an experience as a professional football, because the majority of my life I was playing a professional football, right? I mean, not the EPL, European type league, but more the Asian first tier Champions League type stuff. And so the majority of the superstars who became superstars, right, in professional football, they were really good at the simple things. Like they were, like if you're a football fan, like passing, shooting, like you would think as an outsider that they had some, additional talent, or like, they were very fancy in dribbling, or they shot with the outside foot, or they can do, stuff that is completely different to other people. Although that is, the case for some world-class players like Messi, Ronaldo, whatsoever, usually that's not the case, right? Especially here in Asia. And so the point is, the same principle applies for businesses. And you can see that across, for example, e-commerce line. If you are in the e-commerce industry, a lot of the people who are very successful in e-commerce are very good at the specific basics and little things in areas such as sales, right? Any person who's successful in e-commerce is fantastic in sales. They know how to market really well, they know how to convert really well, and they, if not, know how to communicate really, really well. And so, like, from an outside perspective, that is very basic, right? And they're just really, really good at it. And there's no magic formula, ingredient, there's no magic, I don't know, spell, or you don't have to learn something extraordinary for you to accomplish that. And so if you want to, reach that stage of life where you want to become really good at something and stand out from the crowd and, be praised about it, be famous about it, and even be rich about it, then you have to understand things from a very basic perspective, and you have to master the basics, right? And so I'll give you a very specific analogy. If you guys play video games, in order for you to, I don't know what games you guys play, but in order for you to, kill a level 100 dragon, you need to, have a level 100 sword, right? You need a level 100 weapon to be able to slice him, because if you have a level 1 weapon, it's merely impossible, or it'll take a lot of time to actually kill that dragon, right? And who knows, you might even fail in the process. And so the point is, and it's the same principle in most video games as well, in order for you to level up, right, your sword, your character, you need to like complete the basic levels first. And yes, they are annoying, they're tedious, they take a lot of time, you need to spend a lot of energy. And so for the majority of people, that's boring, right? And it's something that you don't want to do. Obviously, you want to go for that super, vicious, cool dragon that you want to slay and get the trophy and win the game. But just like life, you have to go through the early stages, the early levels, right? And the early levels will always, in every single game, it's the same thing, and the same applies to the real world, is that you need to be good at the basics. And once you are good at the basics, then you slowly progress to becoming good at the advanced stuff, or the intermediate stuff, and then the advanced, and then the professional stuff. And so with that basic sequence in mind, you can essentially accomplish anything. So you have to understand that in order for you to accomplish that particular field, you need to be a master of the basics. You need to be extremely good at the beginning, and you have to do whatever it takes to understand the basics. And as I mentioned earlier, yes, it is absolutely boring. It might take longer than, whatever not, but you have to be really, really good at it. And so that is the first point I want to make. And so the second point of this video I really want to talk about is the idea of focusing on one thing, and the importance of focusing at one thing at a time. And so I'll take this analogy from Charlie Morgan. You guys have probably heard about him before. And he's made the analogy that imagine that the sun possesses or owns your future, right? The sunlight, right? And the sun basically can determine whether or not the future will be given to you. And so what you got to do is a very simple objective. You have a magnifying glass, right? You probably have seen this, or you probably had one before. And your objective is to start a fire, with wood, right? as you can see in these, like, Boy Scout stuff, your mission is to basically start a fire collecting only sunlight, right? And so the analogy depicts that if you have successfully made the wood burn, right? If you have successfully made the wood burn, then you essentially accomplished your goal. And so let's break down this analogy, because this analogy is really, really simple, actually. And so the issue is that the strategy will only ever work if your magnifying glass focuses on one specific point, right? You cannot have 10 different variations of magnifying glasses, pointing all in different directions. It's not going to work, right? And so the reason is because in order for something to burn, you need to highly concentrate the sunlight on one specific point. Otherwise, the wood wouldn't burn, right? If you have the sunlight spread out in multiple different directions, there's not enough heat generated for the wood to burn, right? So you understand the physics behind it. As I mentioned earlier, I don't want to go into physics today, but the analogy states. And so if you want to, be amazing or fantastic in that field that you want to grow in, whether it's, I don't know, football, acting, your career, finance, banking, cybersecurity, IT, whatever you want to do, you have to make sure that you focus on that one particular thing for a long period of time. Don't fall on the trap of shiny object syndrome. Don't, for example, do, I don't know, finance for 2 years and decide you want to do, I don't know, crypto because it's, a trend or something super interesting, and you just dump your entire, finance history. Don't do that. Focus on finance on a substantial amount of time and wait for those successes to unfold itself. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to, change interests or change your mind. You can absolutely do so. But if you want to see a specific result on something, you have to wait long enough for that version of success to be allowed towards your reality, if that makes sense. And so, with that being said, I don't want to elaborate too long. I hope you understand the message. I try to simplify as much as possible. If you do enjoy these videos, subscribe. Definitely appreciate it. I'll keep rolling more of these videos. If you don't, honestly, it's no issue at all. But if anything, I'll see you guys in the next one.